Francis Bacon was an English philosopher who is often seen as the father of the modern scientific method. He argued that knowledge should rest on systematic observation and experiment rather than tradition or speculation. He laid out an empirical approach rooted in careful induction. Bacon warned against the idols of the mind, biases that distort clear thinking, habits, social conventions, language, and philosophical dogmas. Eliminating these, he believed, would clear the way for true understanding. His vision was practical and optimistic. Knowledge is power, and science should serve human progress. Bacon's thought helped lay the groundwork for the Enlightenment and modern technological society. Thomas Hobbes was an English philosopher. He saw human nature as fundamentally self-interested and competitive. Without authority, he argued, life would be solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. People escape this chaos by forming a social contract. According to the English philosopher, individuals give up certain freedoms to a sovereign power in exchange for security and order. This absolute authority isn't justified by divine right, but by rational necessity. Hobbes laid the foundation for much of modern political philosophy. His ideas on government, law, and consent continue to shape discussions of power and legitimacy today. René Descartes was a 17th-century French philosopher who is often called the father of modern philosophy. He sought certainty in knowledge and began by doubting everything he could, senses, the world, even mathematics, until he arrived at one indubitable truth. I think, therefore I am. This became the foundation for his entire system. Descartes believed that reason, not experience, is the path to true knowledge. He divided reality into two substances: mind, thinking, non-material substances, and body, material, extended substances, a view called dualism. This separation raised deep questions about how mind and body interact, issues still debated today. He also aimed to prove God's existence through reason alone, arguing that the idea of a perfect being must have come from a perfect source. Descartes' emphasis on doubt, method, and reason helped launch the scientific revolution and reshaped philosophy for centuries to come. Spinoza was a Dutch rationalist. He defended a kind of monism. According to him, there is exactly one eternal and infinite, necessarily existing substance, God or nature. All other things, including human minds and bodies, are attributes or modes of this one substance. Everything that happens by necessity, according to the Dutch philosopher. There is no free will in the traditional sense. Our thoughts and actions are determined by the laws of nature. We can nevertheless be free. True freedom, for Spinoza, lies in understanding nature and aligning ourselves with it. Ethics is about virtue and self-preservation and about achieving joy and peace through rational understanding. The wise person will realize that hate can never be a good thing and will, as much as he or she can, repay hate, anger, and contempt with love or high-mindedness. John Locke was an English empiricist. He argued that the mind is a tabula rasa, a blank slate, at birth. All knowledge comes from experience, through the senses and reflection. In political theory, Locke developed the idea of natural rights, life, liberty, and property. Governments exist by the consent of the governed and can be overthrown if they violate these rights. Locke's influence on liberalism, education, and constitutional government was immense. His ideas impacted the American and French revolutions and helped shape the Enlightenment and the foundations of modern democracy. Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz was a German rationalist. He proposed that reality is made up of indivisible, immaterial units called monads. Each monad reflects the entire universe from its own point of view and unfolds its internal nature according to a pre-established harmony. He believed that we live in the best of all possible worlds chosen by a perfect God for its balance of good and complexity. Evil exists not as a flaw, but as part of the greater harmony. The German philosopher also advanced calculus, logic, and metaphysics. His vision of a rational, ordered universe shaped Enlightenment thought and laid the groundwork for later developments in mathematics and idealist philosophy. George Berkeley was an Irish bishop, empiricist, and idealist. He held that material objects do not exist independently of perception. For him, the world consists of minds and ideas, with God ensuring coherence by constantly perceiving all things. To be is to perceive or to be perceived. He rejected the traditional concept of substance and argued that so-called matter is just a bundle of ideas in the mind. This idealism was a challenge to both dualism and materialism. The bishop's philosophy emphasizes the primacy of experience and spirit over matter. His work prefigured later debates in phenomenology and philosophy of perception. David Hume was a Scottish skeptic and empiricist who taught that all knowledge comes from sensory impressions. He challenged the idea of causation, arguing that we never perceive a necessary connection, just a constant conjunction of events. He famously questioned the self, suggesting it is not a stable substance but a bundle of perceptions. The Scottish philosopher also critiqued religious belief, arguing that miracles violate natural law and lack credible evidence. Despite his skepticism, Hume valued custom and common life. His philosophy pushed reason to its limits and deeply influenced many later philosophers, including Kant, as well as later movements like logical positivism and pragmatism. Jean-Jacques Rousseau was a Swiss philosopher who believed that humans are naturally good but corrupted by society. In the state of nature, people were free, equal, and peaceful. Civilization introduced inequality, competition, and domination. In the social contract, he proposed a political order based on the general will, a collective expression of what is best for all. True freedom, he argued, means obedience to a law one prescribes for oneself as part of this collective will. Rousseau's emphasis on moral autonomy, education, and civic virtue helped shape Romanticism and modern democratic theory. He remains a key figure in political philosophy and educational thought. Immanuel Kant was an 18th-century German philosopher with revolutionary ideas about knowledge, ethics, and reality. In epistemology, he argued that we don't perceive the world as it is in itself, the noumenal world, but rather as it appears to us through the structures of our mind, the phenomenal world. He called this his Copernican revolution. Instead of assuming our knowledge conforms to objects, he claimed the appearances conform to the way our mind structures experience. Morality, for Kant, is grounded in reason and the autonomy of the rational will, not in consequences or emotions. Kant developed the idea of the categorical imperative, a principle that says we should act only according to maxims we could will to become universal laws. Kant's philosophy bridges rationalism and empiricism, arguing that while all our knowledge begins with experience, not all of it arises from our senses. His work laid the foundation for much of modern philosophy,